But 70 laps here today on a Hawaii 5-0 challenge. Let's get the lights on. Let's get ready. Let's get underway. GB68 with a decent launch. Meraki will look to try and challenge. Here to the Virage Centre on this short run towards turns 1 and 2. Manages to get so okay. Little puff of smoke as they went on by. No issues for Formula Kai. Alex Gillon defends his 4th place. Well does championship leader. And a nice clean start as they run into 3 and 4.
Everyone behaving themselves very nicely into the first few corners. No big incidents like we normally see at the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. But GB was perfect off his line. Did not have any problems from Meraki as we got battled throughout the grid. As Infratic going around the outside of Grid Jokes there up into the top 10.
Yep, and keep an eye out on what drivers will be looking at then as this race goes on. They'll be keeping their eyes peeled on what they're spotted, what their crew chiefs will be saying, giving them strategy advice as this race goes about. But now a little bit of side-by-side as one of the Ferraris goes spinning around there. That's disastrous for Infratic, who looks to try and get himself back going again. No safety cars, remember, as they go by. And as such, that is going to be one that's going to drop him a bunch of time back to 17th position. So easy to do. Cold tyres, lap 1, rears look like they locked up.
Yeah, you do not want to be having that, especially with the fact we haven't got a safety car, and it's going to be big problems. We see I think under Aston Martin going across the chicane as GB sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So we've got two guys going wheel to wheel into the first quarter. I believe it's Gwatz and Ricky for 12th and 11th, as Gwatz is trying to make his way through the grid. Of course, starting a bit lower than he would have liked from the previous Grand Prix. I believe he's going right across the grass there. I wonder how close that was to a corner cut.
Top 10 unchanged then off of the start. Lawlenoba up 2, Gwatz up 2, and it is Ricky 03 down 2 off of the start. Your big loser, Infratic, down 3 places off the start. Your biggest gainer, Hayden Gullis, no surprises, up 3 spaces then on the opening stages of this one. But you got GB68, Meraki, Formula Kai, Alex Gillon, all looking to try and hold themselves in station. And now you're starting to think about, well, where can you go and make that pass? And Meraki is happily here to stalk behind GB68 to try and find a way through on lap 2. So DRS becomes available. You move over to the right-hand side, plain and sailing. Meraki puts the Scuderia Ferrari up on the front for the moment, but here comes a second dose.
Saying no sort of DRS does open up. And will they make that move back into the first corner? I don't think GB really needs to at the moment. I imagine we're going to see a little bit of DRS swapping for a few laps until, of course, we get to that first pit stop window. I'm sure our men down in the paddock can find out what's going to be happening. But is something going wrong with Gwatz? He's dropping down the order. He's already down to 20th. He's had a little bit of spin. I think he has. He's gone across the grass, it seems. I wonder if he's just missed his turn missed his braking zone into turn 1.
Well, if he misses braking zone into turn 1, I'd be surprised to see him that far across. There is a lovely escape road that you can shuffle back on towards turn 2. It might cost you a penalty, but the way that Gwatz has gone off, I reckon he's tangled with someone and has gone spinning about on the wrong side of Lady Luck. So that would be an indicator for me of where it's gone wrong, as there goes Alex Gillon having a look down the inside of Formula Kai. Can he get it slowed up? Just about does it. Again, it's those wheel issues that we were talking about, and he almost into lock here as they go along Casino Straight. The pinch is there on Alex Gillon. He just about forces the door open with a crowbar to try and get by Formula Kai. It is soft versus medium on the brakes down the inside. Perfect time to make hay while the sun shines. You need to when you're on the softs. Great move by Alex Gillon and the tenacity to hold the foot in.
Full bravery from Gillon there. He was not giving up on making that overtake. Formula Kai was not giving up that position, and luckily that didn't cause a massive accident down the back straight. But luckily Gillon is into 3rd place. He's still got DRS on the cars in front of him. He's now going to try and push up towards the leaders.
Yeah, and if you can manage to stay within range of the likes of GB and Alex Gillon, that's going to be there. Gwatz saying it's so annoying that he's dealing with all of those issues out there at the moment. It is really starting to tell that these drivers need to stay within the packs of the groups in front. Front 9 clear, and then the gap to Lawlenoba in 10th is the first real break of over a second that we see at this point. Following then with GB68, happy to see that rain light flashing on the back, not indicating he's on wet tyres or anything like that. that. That's the energy recovery system into play. They've got deploy this, so they've got overtake, they've got harvest, and then they've got just a use button. That's your traditional way to go through. So you're only allowed a certain amount of changes per lap, but you are seeing that harvesting, that electrical harvesting, to get that extra bit of energy out of that 1.6 litre turbo hybrid.
We certainly are making overtakes here this afternoon as well. A little bit worried about that dirty air, but cars are flying. As we see Grid Joke set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And I think that's proving how much that clean air is helping drivers set better lap times, as we saw Infratic get past Hayden Gullis as well. Gaps starting to form here at the Canadian Grand Prix, but we're only 5 laps into this 70-lap Grand Prix. Of course, no pit stops have been taken so far, but I'm sure we're not too far away from drivers thinking about them in the first place.
I tell you what, there will be throwbacks to the likes of 2010 and Jenson Button in the McLaren. In fact, it might have even been 2011, if my memory serves me correct, where he had that wonderful 6-hour race. Yes, thank you for the correction. 2011, where he had that wonderful 6-stop race, last twice, and still was able to win it in a very much similar situation. Through the smoke goes Karim 70 in P7 right now, watching the two Alpines in front of Tom and Rasin Chai, and they have an interesting scenario in this race. They can go and split that strategy up and decide to do something a little different between them, and I think that's going to be interesting to see who blinks first after those two Alpines, because if one goes, you've got to react to the other, because the other's going to be on the alternative.
Yeah, they've got to be careful with each other. We see GB get past Meraki into the first corner. Big lock up there on his front left. I'm sure these tyres are starting to struggle as Infratic gets a... well, no, that's... sorry, Plummer gets 3 second time penalty. Infratic's fallen down to 20th here because he's made our first pit stop and he's onto the full wet tyres.
Well, get him out the way, get out of the frying pan into the fire. So he's got to go 3 laps. He's got to do a full out lap, a full flying lap, and a full in lap on those tyres. So I would say that early, Infratic's trying to get the wet out of the way and move himself onto a different strategy out there. I think that's going to be where the game is won by him in this race. And so if Infratic's going to try and go outside of the box, I don't mind it at this early stage.
I think it's clever from Infratic. He almost didn't make it down the pit straight. He struggled to slow it down going into the first corner. But luckily for him, his car is still going. Those tyres are going to be screaming by the end of this out lap. And of course, he's still going to do another lap after that before pitting to get off these full wet tyres. As we see, once again, the change for the lead. Meraki into P1 ahead of GB68. But then comes GB once again, who's going to go wheel to wheel. No, thinks against it, because of course Meraki still gets that DRS because he was behind him going into the chicane.
Yeah, so that gives you an indication of what you try and do with the move. You try and delay it and hold in before you can make that run left, right and left into that chicane. So it gives you that double dose on the straight. It is horrible for Infratic out there on the wets, and we got a yellow flag out in the opening sector for that. Scott Taylor turned around in the grass in the kick Sauber, so he is not going to be a happy bunny after that. And you take a look at that, fuming a little bit there as he is keeping his eyes focused, a little shake of the head to indicate, I am not best pleased at what's just happened.
That's the angriest I've ever seen Scott Taylor. These facial emotions did change there, but he's not very happy at all. As here comes Alex Gillon, who said, I'm tired of this whole DRS swapping. I want involved in this battle. And he's tried to dive around the outside of GB. And GB said, no, let's just sit where we are for right now. Let's not make any stupid mistakes here.
Well, they are burning their tyres early. I would look around at likes of Formula Kai as someone to keep in mind in this race on the medium tyres, holding himself very wonderfully in regard on lap 7. GB68 retaking that race lead, and we'll see a lot of chopper change like this over the course of this season. Little look to the inside from Alex Gillon. No budge from Meraki then going through, and the championship leader looking to increase his margin over Tiamat Marduk, which he's doing right now. Gwat's in all sorts of trouble today. He'll be happy about GB68, the car he really wants to beat here in 4th, who looks like will be the nearest challenger over the course of this one. Meraki, of course, by the way, down in 10th position in the championship, so we'll be certainly looking to try and jump up forward in that regard. There is Meraki now, 0.8 of a second. He can't afford to drop too much time here, because if GB68 now starts to break away, then Meraki is left with a very big dilemma. And speaking of dilemmas, Rasin Chai looks like he's dropped out then and has gone into AI mode, so that will be everybody flying by him.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for one of the Alpines. It's gone from bad to worse. A game crash we're hearing from Razin, and that's bad for Razin, as all the cars are just going to sail past him now. I suppose, though, Jake, you want to look at the positive, that does solve Alpine's problem with a double pit stop.
It does, but it also means another problem here for Razin. If Razin can't get back in, that car will never, in any circumstance, go to intermediates or wets.
That is also true, and hopefully the Lord who deals with this, and Alex Gillon gets a 3-second time penalty and has fallen off the circuit. He's dropped behind not only Formula Kai, but also Tom down into 5th place. Frustration for Gillon has forced himself off circuit, or has he made a little mistake there?
I wonder whether he's tangled with the likes of Meraki, maybe even Formula Kai, who was looking to try and get by and had been out of that battle and pushing for it. So troubles very much finding themselves. Yellow's out in Sector 2 at the moment because Rasin Chai is dropping like a stone down the order and now rejoins in this race. Off then of the wet will come in Fratic. No surprises there. I would say get some intermediates on and get it out the way. No, going to go to the hard compound tyres then, try and avoid dropping the lap out there on circuit. So we'll now go to the hard compound tyre, get a long stint in on the books.
Yeah, I think we were hearing a bit earlier in qualifying that there is a possibility of rain towards the end of this Grand Prix. So maybe he's got a mind towards that as well. And of course, a long stint on the hards now will be useful as we see Kareem come into the pits as well to get rid of his soft tyres. Let's wonder what tyres he's going to go on to. And it is going to be the intermediates.
Yep, so getting that one there, effectively a soft tyre, so to speak, for those in the wet. So making that decision and looking to get out of the way. Now, one of the interesting things is when you pit and who you pit around, because if you're going to be in and around with traffic on tyres that aren't going to work, you're going to have drivers diving down the inside of you. You've got to try and avoid that each and every way you can. Or you could just go straight off the road there, like Karim has managed to do, just completely overshooting that run. And in fact, it is full wet on there, not the intermediates. So that's going to be a big call then to make that happen, as Karim is going to have 3 laps of hurt to try and get 64 laps of gain, hoping that the intermediates will make it 67.
Yeah, and that is exactly what Infratic almost did when he came out of the pits on the full wet. They are struggling to get any sort of grip into them, and you can understand why. It is bone dry out on the circuit. And as we see Neguero up in 7th place here, doing very well in the Kick Sauber, having a good afternoon so far. But yeah, for GB, Meraki and Formula Kai, 1st, 2nd and 3rd, looking good so far. Gillon, I think, is going to have a little bit of a bone to pick with maybe a few of the cars in front of him. But right now we see Grid Jokes coming to the pit, and he is also going. Is that another set of dry tyres going on the car? It
Looks
is
like
set of dry tyres. Mediums, I think.
Yes, it will be there. So the yellow walled medium tyres there with the yellow rims, making a good call then to jump on down into the pits and make it happen. We got a car spun about there at the final section of circuit, and I think that might have been Karim, who's had a couple issues out there on track. In fact, it's Punjev who's run into troubles there. So that was dramatic to say the least, as Karim and Ricky go side by side up in towards turn number 3. Believe it or not, highest section of this circuit, very little elevation change, little kiss of the wall by Karim going through and just about dealing through. I think late as you like is the best way to deal with this, as Punjev gets 3 seconds worth of penalty. The later you can get this sorted, the longer you can start to move on back. So I reckon at this stage of the race, you know, if you get it done early, it's great. In comes GB from the race lead, by the way. The earlier you go, the more you're going to hurt short term, but you're trying to gain it back long term. If you wait as long as you can build that gap.
Yeah, I think that is the option. And again, GB, our race contender, and of course our race leader before that pit stop, he goes onto the full wet tyres, along with, I believe, who else is pitted? I think that is Laurie Noba, who's come into the pits as well. I imagine he's gone for a similar strategy. Now, GB's going to come out in 10th. Now, this is one of our first drivers that's come out really in a major set of traffic. GB keeping it nicely on the road there, not even a hint of going into the grass. But let's see what he can do on these full wet tyres. It is a mixture of tyres out there. As you mentioned, a Hawaii 5.0 colour as we have on this circuit. Full wet, mediums, hards and softs. It's all the colours of the rainbow so far, and we're only 12 laps in.
And we say that because the Hawaiian driving license is a rainbow color itself if you ever go and get your driving license in Hawaii. So that's why we say it's a Hawaii 5-0 style of race here in the St. Lawrence River, where we find ourselves then part of the installation that was put in for the 1976 Olympic Games, as out of the pits then goes Punju, and looking to get back out and racing again. 1976 Montreal, of course, July over into August there, and the rowing was done here. Really struggling with the rears then, rear limited this circuit because you're trying to work hard here. So Alex Gillon and Meraki in at the same time. Hards on then for Alex Gillon. Meraki comes out ahead, didn't quite catch that this was going to work there for this. So it looks like they've both gone slightly the same there in terms of strategy. And as things go, Clipbook Corner has been busy as anything. Tom, keep an eye out on what has gone on this opening stint, because there's been a lot.
There certainly has been a whole host of things to try and keep on track of. I'm going to run you through them as quick as I can. First of all, we're going back to that almighty send from Fabio. It was just a little bit audacious into the hairpin just at the end of lap 1. Maybe miscalculated his braking zone somewhat. Flew past Noguera and almost went alongside with Krim and Tiamat Marduk as well, sliding that car into the hairpin, narrowly avoiding any major contact with some of the other drivers. Next up, we head over to Guatz. He was having wheel issues, as we alluded to earlier. You see him just try and pause in towards the first corner. That's what alluded to him going off the circuit, and of course the yellow flag that came with it. He has to pause, reset the wheel, and obviously he finds himself a little bit stranded in the grass. Next up, we've got Scott, who's just having some issues in towards the second corner, just where he rode the curb. That's how he sent the car around, and almost caught up with Kalon and Adam Sanderson as well. Just read from Jacob, he's got DAS. Unfortunately, I don't think he sees it that way. Razin Chai with the game crash earlier as well. He freezes, well, his game freezes, he doesn't. And a complete black screen, and, well, watch your thumbs, Razin. We've seen this one a couple of times before, and yeah, unfortunately, he's well and truly out of it. Stay with me, folks. We've only got 3 to go at this point. Alex Gillon misses his braking point in towards the first corner, just tangling up somewhat with Formula Kai. Just runs incredibly deep in towards the runoff area. Whilst he's trying to rejoin through that little bit of tarmac, he gets that infamous 3-second penalty as well. Rather frustrated, as it is a bit of a controllable issue. Karim here, as he made his way off the circuit, this is where he had the issue. Just as he came out of the pit lane, couldn't quite get those full wet tyres stopped. Unbelievable, I know, on a completely dry circuit. Very, very incredible stuff to keep it out of the wall, and does get that car going again. But I think these are issues that we are going to have to look out for over the course of the race. And one more, we did see Punji do a similar incident to this back in Britain last time out. It was at the final corner, just coming through the wall of champions. Wides the inside curb on the left-hand side, back end kicks out, and round that Williams goes.
Yeah, you can see damage there onto the front right of the wing there, which will indicate that maybe that will need a bit of a change as well out there, as we are with Alex Gillon, has made big strides on Meraki, because Meraki's on a full wet tyre, and so that will give you indication of the big difference there. Already 10 seconds to the good, making that decision, as Karim is there in 14th place. So the field very spread out at the moment. In comes GB once again. Now this will be to get off of the wet tyre, and so would have done those 3 laps, and I would suggest a hard compound tyre will go on the car here, Alex, and that is very much the case here. So looking for that long stint, maybe to go to about lap 45, I would reckon, would be a good place to go, seeing with the tyres that have already been used, giving enough of a margin to make the medium tyre work to the end, with, of course, the intermediate having to be interspersed.
Yeah, that seems like the option. A little bit of a mistake there from GB as we get Karim blasting past him on the medium tyres. I am surprised GB coming out on those hards and making that kind of mistake. I know they're not very warm when they come out of their tyre blankets, but yeah, that is not very good indeed from GB. He's got a little work to recover there, as long as you know, it picks up a 3-second time penalty, as well as Punju comes into the pit. Now, I'm not saying we should get excited, Jake, but does it look a little more overcast than it did at the start of this Grand Prix?
Yeah, it is starting to just cloud over a little bit. We saw a little bit of that in the back end of qualifying, which would have been a very interesting port of call to go to. But as Adam Sanderson finds himself on the back of Alex Gillon now, that is a case of Alex Gillon, who's made 2 stops, getting by Sanderson, who's got 1. The leader then of those who have, of 1 stop from those who haven't stopped yet, I'll correct myself. Leader of those who have 2 stopped is now Karim 70, with GB 68 just 2 steps behind behind us at 70, meet 68. Car off down at the bottom of that corner. That's a big off there for Gwatz, and again, that might be the wheel coming off.
It's got to be a wheel issue. There's no way he's locked up that far into that hairpin. I imagine his wheels come off, and he's tried to stop it. And I believe that is a lack of a front wing from a Red Bull perspective. He's gone straight into that wall as GB gets past Meraki, who I believe has just come out of the pits, and he's onto those hard tyres as well. The hards really struggling to warm up here. Again, with the likes of this cold weather, I can imagine it is struggling. As Gwatz is, I believe, just on the exit of the Wall of Champions. As he tried to go into the pits and missed, it's not gone well once again. Was trying to DNF and failed. Yeah, it looks like he tried to DNF, and unfortunately his car is not allowing him to do so. And here we go. And he
there
does a Sergio Perez Felipe Massa from the year 2014. But of course, no safety car is going to come out about it. But Gwatz from hero to zero in less than a week here, Jake.
Yeah, and from moving up to third in the championship, a big 0 on the board will say that all those points are going to go to all his rivals on what is a very closely contested championship at this moment. Formula Kai, currently your leader in this race, yet to make a stop off of those medium tyres as GB68 sets the fastest lap on a 13.2 on his set of hard tyres. You've got Kalen there that we focused on for the moment. We go back to his teammate in 12th position, and there's a reason why he's trying to run pretty quick at this moment, and that reason will be that he's in direct competition with Karim 70 in front. The difference between them, Karim 70 yet to use the hard. Of course, it's a case of GB68 yet to use the mediums. In comes your race leader, Formula Kai.
He certainly is, and he's getting the hard tyres on. So he's waiting to use those wet compounds, and he's not using them straight away. And Naguero goes into the lead of the Grand Prix with Timo Marduk just in behind. And Tom sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:13.1. So it's looking good for him as well, as we see Formula Kai come out of the pit lane ahead of Grid Jokes and ahead of Adam Sanderson as well. Of course, Formula Kai will have to run those wet and intermediate tyres at some point during this Grand Prix.
Yeah, and I would say that there were big dramas to be had for Formula Kai, because he's now come out behind Tom and Alex Gillon, who may be on his last warning for another 3-second penalty. So he's got to be careful about that. No wins for Nogueira in the Creator Series. Might be in a position today to make something happen in the Kick Sauber on the hard tyre, so could go a lot longer than some of his competitors. But the issue is he's already dropped about half a pit stop back to the likes of Tom and Alex Gillon. So this is going to be a long run, but he's going to be quick towards the end of the race. So keep that in mind as they go. Scotty Designs, by the way, with 6 seconds. This might be a game of pencil pushing, so to speak here, Alex, because they're going to be looking around at those penalty points at the end of the race going, well, how many seconds do I have compared to my nearest rival?
Yeah, that's going to be so important later on this Grand Prix. And Ben Daly sitting up in second place, once again proving his race pace is far superior to his qualifying pace at the moment in this year's game cycle. And he is behind Nogueira here. He probably wants to make a move on the Kick Sauber. See Tom running nicely in third as Alex Gillon gets another 3-second time penalty. As we were just discussing in our commentary chat, that first penalty probably was just a straight 3-seconder, which means he was already on 2 warnings to get another penalty, and now 6 seconds for Alex Gillon.
Yeah, that is going to really hurt for Alex Gillon, that he's 6 seconds down on what he wants. The yellow in Sector 1 was for Adam Sanderson, running into troubles in the Mercedes, and that's dropped him back down into 8th position on those 18-lap-old medium tyres out there at this stage. Now, we are keeping an eye out on that rain, if there is going to be any that comes in, and there is a little bit of talk that there might be some at the very end of the race. We're not too sure whether it's going to come in time for certain drivers, but this is going to be a very sketchy race for those drivers who are trying to gamble on the rain, and they will be reliant on those slow tyres being used in the dry to give them more time, basically, for the rain to come.
Yeah, they want that rain to come if it is going to come towards the end of the Grand Prix, but it may not come down hard enough for those tyres to be properly effective and to ruin the other tyres. We're only on lap 20 of 70, and of course, without a safety car here, Jake, there is no waiting around for the rain. It's got to come before the end of lap 70.
Yeah, and lap 70 is, of course, that critical juncture, the end of the race, and where the points all get scored. So we will see how they go as Alex Gillon and Tom looking to work together at this moment here to try and put themselves into play. So for at least this time being, I would keep an eye out then on the likes of Tom and Co as Punju gets another 3 seconds to put in the back pocket, up to 12 seconds of penalty and 45 seconds of drift to the nearest car in front. Now that's what you call a torrid day.
Yeah, it's a torrid day, and he's not even going to get a point for the cleanest driver at all with 12 seconds of penalties. Hayden Gullis, on the other hand, is still looking good for that. So Ricky down in 15th as well. Williams having another torrid weekend as Grid Jokes makes it past Twitch Kalon there in 7th place, I believe, yet to pit. He might have pitted for the first time. I don't think he's pitted for his second pit stop yet. Naguero's still running in the lead of this Grand Prix, running very well, I must say, ahead of Ben Daly in 2nd place, and Tom once again running well in 3rd. Alex Gillon just behind him in 4th, about 8 tenths adrift, but with 6 seconds of penalties. How much can he really do in this Grand Prix?
Well, it is worth noting that Punju is the only driver in this field who has got through both the wet and the intermediate tyre, so has got the clearance necessary now to just run to the end of the race, and will just be looking to try and pick up any places that he possibly can. A handful of drivers all the way back to 11th place have used a wet tyre so far, but not an intermediate. And then, of course, those in the top 10 right now, as that's a huge slide there by Punju to jump into the pits. And that looks like, yeah, it's a retirement from the session. So Punju's done and will be stuck then in the pits and done then from 19th position. So that means half the field's used a wet tyre, the other half haven't out there at this point. And it is worth noting as well that your front two who started have all both used one wet tyre so far. Tiamat Marduk currently looking behind because he will be worried about that gap closing, now down to 7 seconds. 8 lap mediums chased down by Tom compared to 21 lap mediums that Tiamat Marduk has.
And we got hearing news that Ben is planning to box this lap for full wet tyres. You've seen this drop back a little bit from Naguero. I imagine he's worried about overheating his engine on his car, because that dirty air can really affect your engine power, and just giving himself a little bit of a space from the kick Sauber. But yeah, those full wet tyres are going to be going on the Mercedes this lap. Of course, Alex Gillon, Tom, will overtake him, and the likes of GB will beginning to go into push mode because they know they can probably catch Ben before he makes it off of the full wet tyres.
Most dapper corner in motorsport there, with Louis Vuitton pretty much everywhere as he now looks to give himself then the charge over towards that final braking zone. He knows he's got to time this one perfectly on the marks as he looks to slow it down for that 80km/h board, and now puts himself on the pit limiter, looking for that Mercedes box, which will be 4th down on the left-hand side. Not often you see that over various years, and there you can see the cyan colours there of the full wet tyre being put on now, and it's time to lock in and load for Tiamat Marduk, because this will be a very tough 3 laps. Adam Sanderson will jump into a double stack at Mercedes, and Kalon also will dive in, which leaves, I believe, just Nogueira out there at this point in time on a set of the hard tyres.
I think Adam had just made his position up. I don't think he's made his pit stop just yet on this occasion, but Kalon definitely came in for his tyres, and Naguero up in P1. He does need to pit as well, but he's on those hards, so he's going to be waiting. Adam on 22 lap old medium tyres. A car still yet to pit, but Ben Daly planned his pit stop perfectly, coming out in front of his teammates. But of course, on those full wet tyres, I imagine that Adam is going to catch him quite quickly. As we can see, Formula Kai right behind Alex Gillon, who's probably, even though he made his mistake himself, maybe still not feeling that favourable.
Well, it's a full stop ahead of Adam Sanderson, which I think is where it's caught me out here at this point in time. So very easily done. But for Formula Kai, difference is 5 extra laps of life on the hard tyres compared to Alex Gillon and Tom that's there in front. This is 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And, well, you're certainly using them by locking up into the opening corner. Some great scrapping as well between Karim and GB. Look at this down at Lepangle. And on the Casino Straight, how do you gamble heading over towards this section? Miraculous Meraki's got the best seat in the house. It's going to move by because the DRS helps, and Karim will lose 2 places on the stretch right now. On the brakes they go into that final chicane. Meraki will be very happy about that, picking up the place, and so too GB68.
Beautiful racing from the 3 of them. No collisions, no drama. Just absolute pure race craft from GB Meraki and Karim there. Lovely stuff indeed. And we have a radio here from Meraki. That's worked out well. It's worked out well in 11th place, and I'm sure it is working out well for him. He's obviously made 2 pit stops, as you can see here. The rest of the drivers that have made their stops, only, as we mentioned, Naguero and Adam Sanderson yet to pit. Kalon, Thom, Gillon, Kai, and Grid Jokes, Ben and Hayden Garlis all on 1 stop. The rest of them on their 2 stops.
And we are hearing words that Tom here is going to try and hold his tyres to the end of the race, the wets and the intermediate. So that's going to be very key as far as this race goes. We're also hearing word that Adam Sanderson might be heading to pit lane this time by, and is on cue, jumping down in from 6th position on the road, getting off of those 23-lap-old medium tyres. He's done a good stint on those, and now looking to see what tyre that's going to be. I think that's going to be a case of the white-walled hards going on there. So for Adam Sanderson, it's now going to be a case of, can I go as far as I can into this stint before moving on to the red-walled softs? And those 2, look at that scrap in the distance behind there. I think that's Lolanova trying to get by Ricky and Kalon. Kalon, of course, on the wet is just going to have to yield to those 2.
Yeah, and Scotty Designs has passed Ben Daly. Of course, Ben Daly is on the full wet tyres, and GB is closing in. Of course, Ben Daly can pit this lap. He will come out behind GB Meraki and Karim, and it's going to be very interesting to see where this race goes now. If Tom is planning to wait out for that wet and intermediate time. We heard, as we get a quick team radio here, could she's pit entry? I didn't. You're welcome. Well, it's very nice of Mr. Devon Butler to get that sorted. Apparently, Devon Butler and Adam Sanderson, they're the same person. That's a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, I've never heard anything like that in my life before. That's very interesting news to me. But at least for the moment, you've got Tom in 3rd position, trying to keep himself in mind here with Alex Gillon, and battles everywhere. Meraki back through then on GB68, getting that move done. But into the pits comes Tiamat Marduk, so the wet's done and dealt with there. Scotty Designs also jumping in at the same time, and so that'll be a case of wets on for Scotty Designs. Tiamat Marduk will move to the hard compound tyre, but look at how much time Tiamat Marduk has lost to the likes of GB and Karim. That will be an indicator of what staying long has done to the strategy, and it will be a long old chase for what will be the majority of this race now for Tiamat Marduk.
He's got to chase, and he's got to chase hard. Of course, there's drivers in front that need to still run the intermediate tyre, the wet tyre, and possibly the medium or softs, but it is all to play for. With only on lap 26, we've seen so much action here on the Canadian Grand Prix, and it's looking very, very good. As Infratic gets a 3-second time penalty down in 15th place. We are on 27 of 70. I mean, this Grand Prix has flown by in the first few laps here, Jake, and right now, it's looking good for GB, Meraki and Karim, but Naguero is probably the wild card here in P1 without making a pit stop in 27 laps.
This is a circuit that has a lot of attrition factor to it, but it also really tests you in terms of how much you have to keep accelerating and braking. It's a stop-start style circuit here today. And really, Adam, I'm hearing words that Adam Sanderson's having problems in his braking knee, and that's going to really hurt if he has to continue extending that braking zone to just relieve the pain.
Yeah, that is going to be big trouble, not only for most of the braking points around this circuit, because a lot of them are quite heavy in terms of where you need to slow down. And of course, depending on how much power he's got behind his braking foot, then it's going to be a painful experience for quite a few laps to go. Hopefully, for Adam's sake, he knows where his limit is in terms of it, but he's a racing driver. He'll never give up, as Naguero finally gives up on these tyres and comes into the pits on lap 28. Surely he's got to be running the full wet, and he is running the full wet, but we've seen how much time going long can cost you.
But he's got the quickest 2 tyres at the end of the race, though, the soft and the medium, which he can go on to out there. So he departs, and it puts Alex Gillon in front. But remember, Alex Gillon's got 6 seconds of deficit he's got to try and uphold out there compared to Tom and Formula Kai, who are there in that same train. Nogueira will be looking at this about 3 seconds off of Grid Jokes. There's 13 seconds to Hayden Gullis to try and hold over the course of 3 laps. So that will be there. There are 7 drivers in this field yet to use either tyre so far. So that's Alex Gillon, Tom, Formula Kai, Grid Jokes, Hayden Gullis, and then Adam Sanderson out there is the other. So I think we're now down to just 6 out there who haven't used the wet tyres, because number 7 would, of course, be Nogueira, who's out there at this stage. So I think that would be quite evident right now, and that is a lap put on Scott Taylor by his own teammate. That's going to hurt quite a bit, as Formula Kai drifting over that curb and really struggling for any form of grip. Here comes Tom, looking then on those tyres, lunging, contact as they go through the middle of the corner. That will buff out the floor on the right-hand side, their left-hand side, sorry, for Formula Kai. Tom trying to get cheeky and force his way through.
Little bit of a lazy incident there. It was kind of a half lunge from Tom and didn't fully commit to the corner. You've got to commit if you're going to go for that overtake. It's the one thing they always teach you in the basics of karting. And now into Formula 1, Tom really should have committed fully. Formula Kai would have given him the space. He's a very respectable driver. But yeah, Tom should have made that move fully. But unfortunately on this occasion, he chose not to. Caused a little bit of damage. I'm not sure if he's got any damage on that front wing. Hopefully for his sake he hasn't, because right now he's running an excellent race.
No, he's doing a good job here. He's Lolonoba in 11th, but you are trying to avoid damage to the front wing. And Tom, who has been running very, very well, I think he got away with it because it was side-to-side contact and not anything front to rear. So I think that'll be just enough to escape the major clutches out there. And there is Scotty Designs coming off of the wet tyres and jumping down into the pits. That will drop him right down the order, and he'll be looking at a race here with Scott Taylor for this one. Intermediates on, so certainly is going to take the medicine here in the middle of the race.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's deciding not to wait for that rain towards the end of the Grand Prix. He wants to go for the basically the wet set of tyres first. Wet and then into big lockup, maybe to get himself a little bit of heat to go into the first couple of corners. But there we go, we can see what tyres everyone is on. A mixture of hards and mediums at the moment, with Nogueira and Scotty Designs on the inters and wets respectively. It's looking very good for some of our front runners here, including the likes of GB, who may be down in 7th place. But remember, they of course have got several sets of tyres to go, and it'll be very interesting to see how this race plays out on lap 30.
Well, the issue that they've got here is they're 34 seconds off of the race lead. A pit stop here is around 27 seconds, so they've got to find, I would say, about 7 seconds in the stop to go and get the margin what they need. So this is a very critical phase of the race, but 7 seconds can evaporate with one wet tyre compared to the other. So that's what they're playing against at the moment here, as they are fighting about looking to go through. There's no threat of rain on the radar at the moment, so they'll be looking at that going, okay, we're still going to treat this as if it's a dry race out there. And all drivers then, I would say, throughout except to Scotty Designs, will have to use the intermediate at some point. Hayden Gullis trying to keep himself with a clean race right now, finds out that Grid Jokes in front has dived into the pits. Nogueira dropping back those couple of places, then running into the pits then to get off of those tyres. Karim 70 is going to see that and go, well, I've not really gained too much from that. I had to lift a little bit to allow that through. Grid Jokes out on the hard tyres, and look at that from Grid Jokes. What a stop that is, and that's going to come out in front of GB. That's going to be all the dry tyres now used by Grid Jokes, leaving just the wet tyres left.
That's such a good spin from Grid Jokes. It is very, very important that he did that. Drivers expecting rain about lap 66 according to our internal radar. And lap 66, that would be cutting it close for the likes of Tom, who of course is set to use his wet tyres right at the end of the Grand Prix, and his intermediates, of course.
Well, that is if our radar is correct, so we'll keep an eye on that as that goes, but that would play into Tom's hands if it does go in and play that way. But for the moment, Grid Jokes will be very happy coming out of the pits then and getting that as a result. But we'll have to remember he's going to have to try and last a very long time on those hard tyres, because he'll be looking to try and get, I would say, with this, at least 34 laps on that set of hards, because he'll have to go to the wets and the intermediates, and he doesn't want to make an extra stop out there. So it pretty much sets the stall out for this as Hayden Gullis loses out to GB68. Meraki's now going to want to line this up, and so too is Karim 70. Both of them are sitting here watching Hayden, who's a pit stop behind in this race, going, you're not part of our battle, but this is going to start really chopping and changing this up. They need Hayden to have a good lap behind GB68.
Yeah, they certainly do. But is in Hayden's mind, if I know Hayden Gullis, is he thinking more about his cleanest driver award than getting some good points in this Grand Prix? So maybe he might consider letting them pass as long as they don't bash into him. But right now he's sitting pretty in 6th place, with Meraki hopefully wanting to make a move sooner rather than later, because he can't let GB pull away from him here.
No, really can't, and this is where that slipstream and the drag reduction system, that rear wing flap, is going to open up, and there it is, and flying on by and getting that extra little bit forward and gaining, and there goes Karim, no surprises, to go on by 2. So that puts Hayden Gullis back down now into 8th position in this race, and really it's once more a game of sit down, take notice, and really start to bring yourself into play. You can see there how dirty their GB68's floor is running around through this section of the race, as we are on lap 33 here of 70. Remember, Alex Gillon's got 6 seconds to give back. Grid Jokes has 3 seconds to give back, a second and a half clear of GB68, who would love to catch up to a driver with 16 lap pressure hard tyres.
Yeah, he has really got to put the burners on now, GB. Those tyres will be screaming rather than singing for him at the moment as he's trying to fly through this Canadian Grand Prix. And we're hearing as well, Tom is thinking about into earlier than planned, probably around lap 35 to lap 38. Now, if that is the case, maybe he's worried that there is going to be no rain, or not substantial enough rain to make those inters or full wet tyres effective at the end of this Grand Prix. So is that going to really turn this Grand Prix on its head? As we see Razin Shai coming out in 16th place there. He's done 3 of his stops. He's on the hard tyre now. So he's got another stop to go in this Grand Prix. But yeah, it's not been a good race for the Alpine of Razin Shai at the moment.
But Razin Shai has now gone on and has got 1 stop remaining, and it will be to intermediate tyres at the end of this race, having started the race in 5th, down in 16th currently. And the only other driver who is there who has gone through tyres is Ricky03, who will get all his stops done because he's on the intermediates right now and will be looking to dive in. Nogueira done then with the intermediate tyres, should go on to a set of mediums at this stage of the race.
Yeah, going on to that set of mediums, he's down in 12th. Of course, he did the hards. He did the full wets. He's now done the inters, and now he's on to the medium tyres. Meraki with a 3-second time penalty, and that is big news towards the front of the grid. A man who is sitting in 6th place, is on the hard tyres, but has got a big old penalty there that's going to cost him later in this race.
That's what you call a headache. It's nothing that a nice piece of paracetamol wouldn't fix for him at this moment. But right now, you look at Karim 70, that is going to be where the migraine starts kicking in if he now moves forward. And Hayden Gullis has a chance to, and Adam Sanderson can close up. That's where it starts going out of control, and you've got to try and avoid that. Dumbest warning ever, he says for it. Well, there's not much you can do about it. You got it. You made your bed. You may as well lie in it.
Yeah, well, as we know, it is Meraki's game, so maybe there's a chance that he can get that penalty taken away from him. But I very much doubt it, because our man Gareth Allen makes those decisions. And right now, I'm sure he's in no mood to make that decision. As Meraki, right now in 6th place, has got a lot of work to do with that 3-second time penalty. He's got to try and make it back. But what he's got to do right now is remove that from his mind and really got to start thinking back on this Grand Prix. You can't let it affect the rest of this race, especially with so many laps left to go. As Tom is diving into the pits, and will it be for the favoured full wet or intermediate tyres?
We'll have a look as we will keep an eye out on Meraki's scrap right now and bringing everything into play, and he will move on to the hard tyres instead, so chooses against intermediates to go out. We'll go back over to Tom Knight, who's been in the clipbook corner, and there's been a couple of interesting things to talk about over the last 15 laps or so.
There certainly has indeed. We got a couple of instances or a couple of moments just to run through quickly whilst the race runs its course, about halfway through at the moment. First of which, I wanted to mention Gwatz, of course, having his unfortunate retirement slightly earlier on. He did try and crash the car out into the wall just as they got down towards the hairpin. Unfortunately, they somehow managed to not be able to do that successfully. The car did want to bounce and almost went up on its nose, as you're about to see. So unfortunately, he did then have to send it into the barrier slightly later on as well. The other incident we saw on broadcast where Tom was trying to make a move on Formula Kai, and this is just Kai's POV of the incident. As you can see, in towards the first corner, sees the red arrows and completely closes the door on the Alpine behind him. I'll let you make your own decisions up about that one, though.
Very tough one there to try and deal with, and Alex Gillon will have looked at that and said behind that's going to be tough. Formula Kai bringing that into play as we sit on into this. Lap 37 here of 70 and into the second half of the race. Tom on the hard tyres, I think, is going to take the wet tyres over towards the end of that race. Out of the pits comes Ricky 03, who is the first driver good to the end.
Yeah, good to the end. He's got penalties, of course. Williams will hope that there can be some incidents in front of him and he can climb up through the grid. As Kareem is overtaken by Hayden Gullis and also Adam Sanderson. Is that because Kareem is in the pits, or is he having a little bit of trouble? No, he's in the pits, ladies and gentlemen. He is, as Razin Shai picks up a 3-second time penalty. A race goes from bad to worse as Kareem goes onto the hards. Lloyd Nova is also in the pits, and he will come out onto the hard tyres as well. Alex Gillon still leads by 0.5 of a second, but with that 6-second time penalty, it will come into play as we get closer to the closing stages of this Grand Prix.
I don't mean to look around and say what's gone on with Scotty Designs, but it looks like he's had 3 attempts to get off of the intermediate tyres. He's gone on 3 sets of intermediates over the course of this race, with the wet, the hard, the medium and the soft. So really has done himself no favours, and I think he's had some troubles coordinating with his pit crew. So for Scotty Designs, I would say that is a really, really tough bit of luck.
Yeah, tough luck for Scotty there. And I'm sure he will not want to be reviewing this one back. But unfortunately, I'm sure he will be. As Meraki is closing in to Grid Jokes. As he's past GB there. I think a little bit of working together between the two cars. As they're trying to close in on those front runners. I don't know if they've caught that pit stop gap just yet. Because, of course, the likes of Alex Gillon and Formula Kai will still have to run some wet tyres towards the end of this Grand Prix.
I think Meraki and GB are getting about this the right way. They are trying to make sure that those tyres are used up early, and it gives them as much as they can. Lolanova picks up 3. Big scrap going on here as Formula Kai finds himself in the middle of a battle he does not want to be in there. That is Nogueira trying to unlap himself then to get by. Manages to do so on Alex Gillon, and if you've got the pace, you may as well use it. If you think you can unlap yourself, you're more than entitled to do so. And now it comes a case here with Ricky 03 picking up 3 seconds of time penalty. Alex Gillon has fallen back into the clutches of Formula Kai.
And that is exactly where lapped cars could cause all sorts of chaos there. I can imagine Gillon is not going to be happy in his cockpit. I don't think Formula Kai is going to be that happy, because he may have had a run on him without that lapped car getting past. But as you mentioned, Jake, it is totally legal for him to unlap himself if he has the pace, as Kareem gets himself past Ben Daly there, who's now in 10th place. Luckily, Gillon has managed to recover himself just a little bit to get back to that nice 7/10 cushion that he's been running for quite some time. We're about to head on to lap 40 here, Jake. It is looking like a very enjoyable Grand Prix. The clouds have cleared, the sun's back out. I wonder if there's still any rain on the horizon.
Well, we will see if that does become the case. So at least for the moment, it has been a day in which many drivers have had a good story. Many drivers have run into troubles. But over to T-Dub, Tom Wilkinson, with what has gone on in this race so far, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating Grand Prix so far. 40 out of 70 down, and we've seen a real split in strategies, haven't we? And those drivers that went slightly long at the start, Nogueira going long, starting on the hard tyres, Tim McMarnock starting on the mediums going long, they've left themselves with a lot of work to do. That's a Ferrari going backwards, I can see. I believe that's Infratic going the wrong way.
Yeah, in reverse. Is this a case of trying to do a reverse lap or just trying to find a place to go to the turn 3 section to bring that car around? So this is a full lap in reverse.
You absolutely love to see it, don't you? But yeah, just going back through things, I think the undercut that a lot of drivers have gone through has been really, really strong. Alex Gillon and Formula Kai left themselves in a great position. Those early penalties for Gillon, the first one, that 3-second instant 3-second penalty at turns 1 and 2, the battle between himself and Kai, uncharacteristic mistake, but pace looking very, very strong. And he is still under a lot of pressure, but playing it very, very nicely. He's actually keeping his cards really close to his chest as well, not speaking too much about the strategy. And there is a little bit of a question about whether the rain is still going to come. Said about Tyre McMarnock, a lot of work to do. Kareem 70 rolling the dice as well, that different strategy to Meraki and GB that he was entangled with for about 20 to 25 laps. The gear actually flying at the moment as well on those fresher medium tyres. This is still a lovely little reverse lap for Infratic as well.
It's his game. It's not Meraki's. It's very much Infratic's out there at this point. You love to see it. A little bit of a smile's done with it. Backs it into the wall and now looking to get going again out there, but is just waiting over to one side, allowing the faster traffic to fly on through, knowing that points were going to be a little bit tougher to come by. Infratic deciding half a lap, that'll do me, going backwards out there on circuit. But here on lap 41 of 70, your race lead battle still on, but they have dropped about 4 seconds over the last lap or so. Yellow's out there down at the bottom. Is that Infratic again there going by? It will be there, so that is going to be a case of let's do some doughies down there to get all of that sorted. I tell you what, entertainment factor right there. Glad we've not got a clerk of the course, Alex.
Yeah, I'm very glad we haven't got one of those. Wonder if no one's told Infratic there's no safety cars. Maybe he's thinking he's going to cause one, or maybe he's having a little bit of fun out there. But Infratic, yeah, not the best afternoon for him, and it is looking like going to be a DNF in the future. But yeah, Scott Desires does make up a place. He's up into 17th place ahead of Infratic. But back towards the front of the grid here, Gillon, Kai have only done 1 stop in this Grand Prix. Grid Jokes, GB, Meraki have done 2. Adam Sanderson have done 1. Kareem has done 3, along with Lolly, Nova, Nogueira, and Razin had done 3 as well, with Ricky doing 4. The rest of the drivers doing 2 stops, apart from Scotty who's done 6. Infratic, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done, I'm done. Well, I think from that information we've heard that he's done.
I'm not too sure. He might not be. I think he's deciding he's going to continue to do a few donuts, so I don't think he's quite done just yet. But at least for the moment, he'll be out there in sympathy, trying to encourage his teammate Meraki to go out there to find some pace and to go out there and continue. Whatever floats your boat in terms of fun is what's there. Tyre McMarnock then through on Adam Sanderson. That puts him up now into 8th position, and we'll look to try and get past Kareem as well for the next one. That's 10 seconds there. Infratic retires, and now that definitely is done. So 3rd retiree in this race. Infratic becomes that 3rd driver to make that happen. Position change though for the race lead. Formula Kai with the 5-lap fresher medium hard tyres making the change. So Kai over to the front and making that move made with just 27 laps to go here at Montreal.
27 laps to go, and we're hearing in our ear that GB is considering a pit stop in the next few laps. Currently in it was in P6, but passes Meraki to go into P5. He's currently on the hard tyre, and 28 laps on those tyres. And there is your intervals, ladies and gentlemen. 7/10 between the front two. 12 seconds back is Tom, and then 15 seconds back from him is Grid Joke. And then GB is 5 seconds off of that. That is going to be quite the jump up for GB. He's going to have to do a lot of work here, Jake, to really challenge for that race win. I know Formula Kai and Gillon have got to go onto those inter and wet tyres, but can he make that time up?
It's 21 seconds to try and chase down when wet tyres are there for 3 laps. In comes Alex Gillon, though, to make the stop. And now this becomes an interesting game. Medium tyres go on, as the radio is, as it's going to be, someone tell me I'm boxing, lap 45. Well, we know now you're going to be coming in next lap. But at least for the moment, Alex Gillon, where he comes out behind Tom, is a very interesting scenario indeed. He's now going to look to try and chase down that gap, and it is 12 seconds, and crucially as well is going to have to deal with a bit of traffic off of the exit, and just about clears Razin Chai, sorry, not Razin Chai, but Riccio 3 there to move on by. So Alex Gillon crucially getting himself the gap, and now looking to try and jump and say 12 seconds to chase, or so, or in fact 4.5 to chase, I would say, on Tom on those medium tyres.
And I think he's going to make it work. Gillon has got a lot of pace in that McLaren. Even with his 6 seconds of time penalties, he can make this up. It's going to be very difficult to win that triple back-to-back Grand Prix, but if there's anyone that could do it on the grid, it's probably Alex Gillon.
Yeah, he's got 6 seconds plus, though, to try and chase down and do a bit more. Meraki, of course, who has been playing tandem as well, will also be very interested to know that it will be a case of I want to dive in. And it might be a case here of trying to line this up, get the pass, and hope that it's not defended too aggressively down on the inside, because it would be a case of Indiana Jones and defender of the lost corner if GB68 does get by Meraki and does so quite comfortably. There is the slipstream. Now, which way are you going to go? It's going to be over to the outside to get that clearance, and comfortably does so, and will go straight on then onto that lap 45. So it'll be at the end of lap 45 then. It will surely have to be to dive down into the pits, gets that track position, and now we'll look to try and work with it, heading towards the pit stop. But these drivers will be looking around, and I think GB68 will be staring down the gap of about 23 seconds and go, I kind of want to chase that down with the wet tyres out there at this point. So that's going to be a lot there to try and deal with at this point in time.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be a lot to deal with. And can they try and make this time up? As we see a team radio there from Mr. Tom Knight. Not sure where he is, to be honest with you, but I can't see him on track, but he must be down in the paddock making team radios. But as we see Meraki being chasing down GB. GB is going to be in the pits this lap. Formula Kai is still your Grand Prix leader at the moment. Any surprises through that grid? Just trying to check out. Adam Sanderson still running nicely in P9. And I wonder, maybe is he waiting out for the rain? Gullis, of course, still in the top 10. And let's see if he gets that cleanest driver award at the end of the Grand Prix. Here comes Meraki, going to pull to the right-hand side. No, they're both going to be into the pits. Oh my goodness, the smoke going into Meraki's face there, but neither of them with 10-second time penalties.
Listen, you don't need to use them any longer after that. If you make them 50 pence pieces, you may as well do. So the change then made for both drivers, who have decided, both of them, onto medium tyres. Advantage GB68 with that, as Tiamat Marduk will go through. But remember, Tiamat Marduk is a full pit stop back of those drivers as and when they go around to try and chase this down. GB68 crucially gets out behind Adam Sanderson, who's now got a big job to play over these next couple of laps. And then just behind that is, of course, Meraki trying to bring that into play. So now as you sit down and look around at it, Adam Sanderson here needs to have an almighty lap here, and probably needs that toe and needs that DRS, not just here in this third section where you can get DRS the runs to 8 and 9, but also along Casino Straight.
And as the wise words of Fernando Alonso, defend like a lion. And that is what Adam Sanderson is going to try and do as he covers GB's car with smoke. But as that cost him big down the Casino Straight, and it could be game, set, and match already, as here comes GB with DRS open. There's nothing Sanderson can do to defend the mighty Aston Martin. As here comes Meraki, he's going to go from a long way back, and he's going to make it into that 8th position. Adam really didn't defend like a lion there. And we are hearing now from some of the drivers, rain 10 to 15 minutes away, Jake.
And that will be a huge scare for drivers who have been thinking about, I don't want it to be 10 to 15 minutes away. And the reason why I don't want it 10 to 15 minutes away, I've already used up my wet. I've already used up my intermediates. That's the last thing that was wanted out there. So I think that really does show that drivers will be looking around a bit sheepish going, oh, maybe I should have saved them for a little bit longer, just in case this scenario brought itself into play. Meraki right now here in 8th place with GB68 in 7th. They're now on the back of Tiamat Marduk, who will be looking at this going, well, I've still got a set of tyres saved up. Crucially, intermediates, I can hold this out as long as necessary, but for GB68, it's brand new mediums versus 21 lap old hard tyres, and I think this is plain sailing. Look at that, a sailing ship going straight by Tiamat Marduk.
Yeah, GB and Ben not colliding here this afternoon. They've decided to leave that in the past, as we're going to see Meraki get past Ben in exactly the same way and set fastest lap of 1:11.9. They are flying on these new medium tyres. 6 of our drivers have yet to use either wet tyre, and if that rain is in...
Well, if it's there, you will certainly start to see how that all goes. Those 6 drivers, Adam Sanderson is the first. You've got then Grid Jokes, Alex Gillon, Tom, Formula Kai, and then Hayden Gullis is the other one who has now brought back into that position, as now in comes Formula Kai to go make that stop. Soft tyres will be on, and if you get yourself a little look at what's been putting into play, I would say soft tyres now, when you get a 10 to 15 minute notice, you have just got to burn them.
Yeah, you've got to burn them now. You've got to use those soft tyres and absolutely fly through this Canadian Grand Prix, as we see Formula Kai get past Grid Jokes there, and understandably so, they are just flying through the grid at the moment.
Yep, they are certainly looking to try and find that, but Formula Kai here is going to have to really push, because it's dropped down 7 seconds off of the back of Alex Gillon and needs 6 seconds to try and chase down that gap. And so if that is the case here of 6 seconds chase as Adam Sanderson goes onto that soft tyre, this is where you've got to be so switched on. You've got to find everything you possibly can to try and use those tyres up early. As remember, that gap at the front, that battle between Tom and Alex Gillon is also closing to a second. Tom's on the radio here. We're leading. Mum, get the camera. We're winning this race, and managing so, as Kalen is going to be just ahead of Adam Sanderson, 13th place only. Lucky for some.
Lucky for some, unlucky for others, as Adam is going to go round the outside of the Aston Martin. That's a brave place to make an overtake, with Adam Sanderson proving it's possible here, and he's up into 12th place. Lovely move from the Mercedes driver there. As we are watching Gillon versus Tom, it is looking very, very close in this battle, and Gillon is fast approaching as GB gets past Meraki as well. And this is going to be the battle to the end of the Grand Prix. 20 to go when they cross the line. It's very difficult to call this one at the moment.
What's interesting here is actually where Karim 70 is by comparison, because he's 5 seconds down the road from GB and Meraki, and quietly is actually battling for this race win as well. It is the best place of those who have got 1 stop left to go here in this one. So can Karim 70, while we've talked a lot about GB68, a lot about Meraki, is it going to be Red Bull's day in the sun, or maybe even the overcast cloud out there here, as Alex Gillon through on Tom. 8 laps difference on tyres, mediums versus hards. Alex Gillon now through, and now needs to break the toe, because he needs 6 seconds on Tom.
He needs to absolutely fly up the road. He's the checkout of this Canadian Grand Prix if he wants any chance of a back-to-back victory here in the Creator Series. Of course, our championship leader sitting at the top of the timesheets at the moment in P1, and will pick up his win if he can hold this Grand Prix win, but has still got to make a few pit stops here, as Meraki is in 6th place once again, ahead of GB.
Yep, the move made, and with those Google Chrome tyre rims that's there for Alex Gillon, those 6 seconds would indicate that he's got 6 seconds worth of lag to deal with and is buffering a little bit out there. I want to discourage and silly Alpine team games at the moment, so that would be a case of I want to get through, and I don't want Razin Shai to do anything silly as he goes by. He's trying to break clear and has already got the second. He will want Razin Shai to be the gentleman that you should be and get out of the way. DRS crucially was there though for Tom. He was within the window when he reached the activation line. That will bring it back in, but Alex Gillon's trying to push, and Hayden's got a time penalty. Say goodbye to the squeaky clean driver award.
Oh, Hayden is going to be so upset with that 3-second time penalty. His cleanest driver is surely out the window now.
Well, he's not going to get his 3-peat out there, and it looks like for Alex Gillon, he's going to have to work to maintain his 3-peat then in play. So you look around at who will, and that's going to be worth keeping in mind as, again, GB68 gets himself his place. No, it's over. Time to take everyone out. Well, that's a case of mercenary for hire now becomes Hayden Gullis.
Yeah, mercenary for hire. And to be fair, I think if there's any mercenary I'd want, it'd be Hayden Gullis on mercenary duty. As GB once again swapping places with Meraki. It's so interesting, so intriguing now, with a possibility of rain in the air, with tyres still need to be run here at the Canadian Grand Prix on lap 52. I am so excited to watch the end of this Grand Prix. I have no idea who can win this one.
Well, at the moment, I would say Alex Gillon's in a good place. Tom currently favourite. Formula Kai trying to chase on down on the soft tyres. But you've got to keep your eyes on Karim. You've got to keep your eyes on GB and Meraki. Those three have put themselves in a fantastic position to make this race work for them and to say they can make it over towards the end. Big lockup right now is going to be there. And, of course, because of time penalties, GB68 a couple seasons ago couldn't quite pick up the victory. It's a very good place for GB to make things work as Meraki goes flying on by and says, you know what, that HP Scuderia Ferrari is going to move back into 6th position, but they're working to chase down Karim right now. Remember, that was a 5-second gap once upon a time. It's now 3.5.
It's closing and closing quickly. GB with no warnings at the moment. And he's looking good for the Aston Martin driver, who of course has a few wins under his belt now. Of course, that famous first win around the streets of Baku. I'm sure he'd love to pick up another Grand Prix win here in Canada, as we see the two Alpines are going to go past each other here. But of course, that is Tom lapping Razin Shai. Oh, that's going to hurt that one.
Yeah, but crucially, even more important than that, 2 seconds now, the gap Alex Gillon has been able to pull out to. Remember, he needs 6 over Tom to overturn the penalties that he's had earlier on in this race. Tom now sits in a really interesting predicament here, where he's on those hard tyres, and he just has to sit on them and wait till lap 65 comes about, where he has to come in and put on a set of either intermediates or wet, and he's got to get through both of those sets. There's no point coming in earlier, so it's a case of a fixed strategy for those drivers between now and the end. GB again holding back through and gaining that place, but Karim gives some credit on the hard tyres, running some great lap times then, doing a 1:12.9 on that last go around, only dropped the second to GB, but remember, Meraki lost 1.2 being overtaken, so net, they've probably lost a 10th on that lap.
And he's looking so good for Karim. I mean, the Red Bull has really got a chance of still picking up the victory here with only, well, what is that, 15 laps to go? Actually, yes, 15 laps to go. My maths is correct for once. And yeah, as Tom is almost 5/10 slower than Alex Gillon per lap. And that will add up as Razin Shai gets past Twitch Kalon, because Twitch Kalon is the pits for soft tyres.
Yep, so that is a change then, as those softs have to be run in this race using all 5 tyre compounds. In the background as well, Scotty Designs comes in for another one out there, and I make that Scotty Designs first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh pit stop of the day. That's certainly not what he was asking for. Maybe it might even be his 8th out there at this point. Who's counting anyway? But at least right now, it is going to be a tough order to go through. So there's there's Ricky 03. Also keep an eye out on Nogueira, who's very close to Lolanova. That gap is 0.8 of a second with Hayden Gullish just behind as well. 9th, 10th and 11th, and a big kick over the grass on the inside of the curve by Ricky. Got to be careful about that.
Got to be careful indeed. There's still reports of rain in the air. But I think we're getting mixed reports from drivers. We're not sure when this rain is going to hit. Right now, it looks like a nice June day up in the skies here in Canada. But we know how quickly rain can change in Formula 1. And there is some clouds coming in our direction, as you can see right on board here with Meraki. But they look a bit split up. I don't know if we're getting any rain here, Jake.
Not in 5 minutes, I wouldn't have thought, which is what we're hearing from some of the radios. So it looks like it might, if it is going to come in, it's going to come in quite quick, or if not at all. So Meraki looking to try and chase, and look at how they have just thundered down the gap now to Kareem, because that gap is down to 1.6 seconds. The traffic there certainly not helping things out, but at the moment Kareem is trying to do what he can. Kareem 70, who is leading this group of those who have got one stop to make here at 35 seconds off the race lead. You are starting to think that Meraki and GB are more better placed to go and make it happen with them both on medium tyres, and they have followed each other almost to the letter, and Kareem with a bit of DRS off of Scotty would have been quite happy with that. In comes Tiamat Marduk to make the stop as Nogueira goes through to 9th, now 8th.
Yeah, Nogueira is looking very good at this Grand Prix as well, silently making up his positions as Ben goes on to the soft tyres and falls down out of the point behind Hayden Gullis and Lolly Nova. As they are all battling positions. Hayden gets a move. The RBs battling into turn 1, wheel to wheel, I believe, as Lolly Nova comes out on top, and here comes Tiamat Marduk out into 12th place. And it is right to the wire now, as we're going to have 10 laps to go in only a few laps' time. Jake, there is rain possibly in the air right now. I am not sure who's going to benefit from it, if anyone is going to benefit from it.
Well, look at the gap that Alex Gillon's now got. It's 4.6 seconds at the front. If it ticks over 6 seconds, he's got the lead of this race outright, and that would be huge out there at this point. And Formula Kai is the one car that I look at right now. He's in a world of hurt in currently 3rd position. He's on the soft tyres. He's been on them for 8 laps, and ideally, he's got to go on them for another 6 more.
And that is going to be really painful. You can see that car's already sliding round the corners. And you can see maybe it's starting to darken up here a little bit at the Canadian Grand Prix. But definitely not enough for a bit of rain. It is an 18.5 second stop in Canada. And that is going to be big news, especially for our drivers that have still got to do a few pit stops here this afternoon. Of course, if they do not pit, as Razin Shai picks up another 3-second time penalty, a race to forget for Razin Shai as Nogueira falls down into 10th place. But yeah, it's darkening up here. I can see the clouds rolling in here, Jake. I think we're going to get a little bit of rain, but I don't think it's going to affect our drivers that much. Definitely not the guys that are on the dry tyres.
Well, it's not a case of it's 18 seconds and Alex Gillon's 18 seconds clear of Karim 70, GB 68 and Meraki. It's 18 seconds plus time lost by going around on intermediates and wet tyres late on in this race. It's about what have you left yourself in the back pocket, and that's where I think you're starting to sit back and say, have you been able to count this race back? Because the rain will certainly help Alex Gillon and Tom and Formula Kai hold their positions and try and mitigate the damage they would have lost by taking a fully dry tyre out there, like the wet, for example, after the first stint. But it is now about how you get through. And I tell you what, GB68 will be looking at Karim 70 and going, I want to get by, and I want to get by like yesterday.
He needs to fly past as soon as he can, because he now needs to start making the charge to grid jokes and make up as much space as possible. Gillon, I can't do maths without a spreadsheet. I can't do maths with a spreadsheet. So Gillon is going to really struggle to try and pull this into the position he wants. With 6 seconds as well, I am not sure how this is going to go down. And those clouds have rolled in here at the Canadian Grand Prix. The circuit Gilles Villeneuve may be about to be covered with a lot of rain. As here comes GB. Oh no, he pulled out of it. Knows he can make the move into turn 1. Didn't want to cause an incident into the chicane.
12 seconds now up for Scotty Designs, by the way, as here comes a little bit of a look, and down the inside it's made. Great pass there by GB, but the key's going to be that he is going to now be the guinea pig at the front. Meraki's got to find a way to get by Karam as well, and Formula Kai picks up 3. That's going to hurt as well. Grid Jokes here, they're only 3.5 seconds back, and if Alex Gillon wants to win this race, he needs Grid Jokes to defend like a lion, as was said earlier on today. So right now, Grid Jokes here holds the cards right now for Alex Gillon's win. He's 6.7 clear of Tom. He's the net leader.
He is the net race leader. These drivers are picking up time penalties that could cost them big with these laps here to go. And Meraki's stuck behind Kareem now. He needs to make that move too. He wants to keep with GB. They are on very similar strategies, if not identical, towards the end of this Grand Prix. 10 laps to go when we cross the line. 7 seconds the gap between Gillon and Tom. That is enough to clear him. But of course, pit stops will take effect very shortly. I imagine drivers are going to be hearing the radio message from their engineers. Rain is expected in a few laps' time.
And they are thinking about this, and they do not want to see that fall. If you are certain drivers, if anything, they'll be doing their sunshine dances instead of rain dances to try and stave it away and give themselves as much margin as they can. Gap to Grid Jokes is down to 2.7. There were no changes of position over that last lap then between these drivers in 5th, in 6th, and in 7th places at this point in time. So now it's about how can they push 36 seconds off the race lead, and this will be a game of can you hold on late from Gillon, from Tom, from the likes of Formula Kai. They will all look around and say, how do we hold on late in this race? Those 4, along with Hayden Gullis and Adam Sanderson, are those needing to use wets and intermediates at the end of this race. Intermediates only left for GB68, for Karam 70, for Meraki, and for Tiamat Marduk. They'll be looking at building that gap late, because if it does rain, and it does rain late, they've got the perfect tyre, the intermediate for the final 3 laps. They would have timed it absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, they certainly will. There's a few drops of rain there on the visor of Kareem, and it is raining here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. There's rain coming down here, Jake. Lap 61, a little bit before we expected it here, as I am losing my voice from talking. But it is, Jake, this is going to be very interesting now with 9 laps to go, and the rain is coming down. It's coming down fast as well.
Well, they're going to have to hold out on dries for 3 laps. Otherwise, they're going to be in a tough position. But I'd say you've now got the opportunity to pit early if you're Alex Gillon, if you're Tom, if you're Formula Kai. If you think the track's wet enough, I would say you've got intermediates to the end of the race. So you're going to be in a great place. But Gillon and Tom and Formula Kai are all going to have to put wets. You've got yellow flags out there in Sector 2 for a car that's spun. That might be Rasin Chai, who's gone into the pits. Yes, it is. But there is a car around, I think that might even be Ricky 03 who's in trouble. Yes, trying to get back to going once again and managing so. So this is a big moment for Ricky, who's trying to just stave on. It's proving already that drivers are being caught out.
Yeah, I think they're already struggling. The circuit does tend to get wet really quickly because, of course, it is it's a piece of tarmac that gets covered by a lot of cars daily. It's not a permanent circuit, and drivers are in. Drivers are in for what will be their final pit stops of the Grand Prix. Grid Jokes in for wet tyres, intermediate tyres. Meraki in for intermediate tyres as well. GB stays out. It is going to be chaos here in the next few laps.
Well, Grid Joke still has to put on a set of wets, so he's got wets for the final 3 laps of this race, and now he's going to force Meraki to try and make that push. This is a bold call by Meraki to go early rather than late. We haven't seen anything to say DRS is disabled at this point in time, so we're not yet at the crossover, but everyone's jumping in. Race leaders in. Alex Gillon makes the pit stop now and will need to jump on to a set of either wets or intermediates, whichever he thinks is the best to get him home and hosed. It's intermediates, which will mean that wet tyres will have to go on for the final 3 laps of the race. Tom and Formula Kai jump.
And this is crucial now. And they are tiptoeing around the circuit. GB can't get any grip in those tyres. He may even have a Red Bull going past him here down the back straight. DRS is still enabled in these wet conditions. It is absolutely torrential now. This rain has come down a lot harder than anyone was expecting. Can they slow it down for the pit stops? Barely. They do. GB in the pits. He's going for his intermediate tyres. And there, on our picture-in-picture, is Meraki. GB says, I'm really struggling for traction. DRS is disabled. That's the indication that it's time for wet tyres. Here comes GB. He's got in front of Kareem in the pit stop phase. And there is Meraki on the right-hand side of your screen. Where are they going to come out? Into turn 1. It's going to be close. It's going to be incredibly close. But I think Meraki's got it.
Yeah, Meraki's got the jump, and now, how quickly can you get those tyres up to temperature now with just 7 laps to go when they next cross the line? Alex Gillon is 11 seconds to the good right now, but you are looking around at everybody else and saying, will there be enough rain for wet tyres to work late on? We know that the wet tyres are very tough to get into window, but for Alex Gillon, has he played a masterstroke right now as the rain falls right on cue for him?
I think they might have pulled another masterstroke here as we see Scotty Desires right at the back of the grid. I think we had someone go into the wall of champions as well as Aguero is into the pits as well. But yeah, there goes Tom. He's in second place. He's on intermediate tyres. We're on lap 64 of 70. GB and Kareem are swapping places in 7th and 6th respectively as they are battling down the casino straight here. Kareem in front of GB, blocking as best he can. Meraki in front of him. Here comes GB. He doesn't have the straight line speed without DRS.
Well, that's the key. You use it so much around this Montreal circuit here, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, as a crutch. When you can't lean on it, what do you do to try and make those passes? And that's going to put a tough spin on things. What will also be tough is Tom has gone off at pit exit when he rejoined the circuit, and that's where the extra few seconds came into play. You now start looking around and saying, what more do you want? Grid Jokes here is going to have to do God's work right now with Meraki just 1.1 seconds back.
And GB looks to be struggling in these conditions. He doesn't have that pace. The front isn't turning. Well, that is not good in a Formula 1 car, I can tell you that, as Kareem is really starting to struggle on these intermediate tyres. The track looks to be getting wet quicker and quicker, and I wonder how many of these drivers have driven in these kind of conditions so far, especially with the swapping of tyres. This track has got wet so fast as we see Tom clatter the wall of champions there, but no damage on his Alpine. With lap 65, the drivers will still need to make one more stop, and 6 drivers need to make that stop.
Yeah, so you got the top 4 who all need to make one more. Hayden Gullis and Anden Sorensen are the other 2. So for the moment, Grid Jokes holding himself steady, keeps himself with that margin, but now how hard can he defend as a reserve, by the way, to try and hold up Meraki for Alex Gillon, looking for 3 straight wins to start this season off. Meraki sending it down the inside, looking for the miracle. Not quite there. Can he pick up drive off the exit? Yes! And we'll get the lunge on the exit. What tenacity by Meraki. Moves himself up into 4th and now knows 40 seconds back off the race lead. He has got to harry.
He has got to absolutely fly through this Canadian Grand Prix. Of course, Gillon with that 6 seconds, but Meraki with 3. It was a beautiful move to put him in that position. It's now down to his own talent to get him up to the race lead as Alex Gillon is going for another lap. This lap, surely, he's got to be in for the full wet tyres.
Well, this is where those full wets he will try and get on as late as he possibly can. He can pit at the end of lap 67 for them. So this is lap 66. He's starting. It'll be lap 67 afterwards. Kareem comfortably dispatches of Grid Jokes as well. So that'll be another car that goes through and gains the place that is so desperately needed at this moment in time. This is what you call battling over adversity, trying to get the strategy to work. And Alex Gillon, 12 laps on the softs, 31 on the hards, 19 on the mediums, and the heavens opened, and he said drink it in because he leads by 13.
Yeah, he certainly does. Lono picks up a 3-second time penalty. He can pit now if he so chooses to. He needs to get these wet tyres on at some point as Razin once again leaves the session. It must have been another game crash for him. Down in 12th place anyway. It is a struggle for him this afternoon. Gillon has got the work to do. The Inters are struggling. Is it full wets out there? I think the track may have got so wet that Gillon has pulled the masterstroke and he may be able to get on these wet tyres and possibly win this Grand Prix here, Jake.
Alex Gillon might look at that and say it's what's needed. He just about finds his way through. Tom might decide to make the call early to make it happen. Formula Kai will also need to come in and make that stop. Remember, that gap is 4 seconds, but remember, it'll be 7 because Formula Kai's got 3 seconds of penalty. Meraki's got 3 seconds of penalty. Grid Jokes has 9 seconds of it. Kick a tail from Formula Kai through the final chicane. Nowhere near pushing it on the wall of champions. We are in what we think is full wet conditions, and we know at the end of this lap, the top 3 drivers in this field and the car in 6th will all have to dive on straight into pit lane.
They will certainly have to do that. Then they have to recover the time they lost. Gillon may have made the masterstroke of strategy. Yes, the heavens open maybe a few laps earlier than we expected, maybe a few laps earlier than the drivers expected, maybe heavier than the drivers expected, but you've got to play your hand, and Alex Gillon played his hand at the right time and in the right place. He will pit this lap and go for his full wet tyres, and that will be him to the end of the Grand Prix, and surely are we about to see the three-peat happen.
Don't speed in the pits. Don't speed in the pits. Don't speed in the pits. Please don't speed in the pits, Alex. If you want to win this race, that's where he sits at the moment and sees cars in front, diving in front of him. And he very gingerly dives into the pits and makes sure he gives himself as much margin as possible to go and navigate that. Tom will follow and will have to hit the brakes because in front he runs into his own teammate as he looks to go in and picks up 3 seconds as well to boot with that. That will really hurt for Tom and what he's trying to do, as you've still got a lot there. That's 65 Ks for 80 kilometers an hour. And Alex Gillon, you look around, look at the margin he's got.
He's got a massive margin. 14 seconds is the gap in front to the cars that have just made it into the pits. But Tom with that 3-second penalty, Kareem with a 3-second penalty, Meraki's only just made it through the final corner. And, a little bit getting through. Razin's AI, the irony of Razin having AI problems and crashing into Tom. The Alpines collide again here in Canada. Meraki's just made it through turn 1. Tom is going into turn 5 and 6. The wet tyres, saving to the end, has been a masterstroke. And Alex Gillon is on his way to a 3-peat Grand Prix.
Well, fortune favours those who are brave. Tom in 2nd, Formula Kai in 3rd, and they will be happy with where they are. Karim 70 will still want to chase down quick, knowing he wants to get within 3 seconds of Formula Kai for the last stage on the podium. The damage as well for Tom on the front wing remains on, so keep an eye out on Tom between now and the end of this race. But Meraki is going to have to be the one who's really hunting now in 4th position, knowing that he will be dragging Karim 70 closer and closer to points right now, and that gap is 6 seconds. He's got to get 3 seconds in the last 2 and a bit laps of this race.
And we're on to lap 69, the penultimate lap, as Gillon is leading by 13 seconds. A comfortable margin for the McLaren driver. A driver that was at one point in this Grand Prix nowhere near winning this race. He says, don't celebrate too soon, we're still on the wrong tyre. Well, he thinks it's the wrong tyre, Meraki thinks it's the right tyre. It is anyone's guess what tyre we're on, but we're a 13-second gap, and the gap to the car that has no penalties is 21 seconds. I can't see Gillon losing it now.
It will take a very hefty mistake for Alex Gillon to lose this race from this position. Formula Kai is trying to hold on for a podium here today. In the Haas, he got himself a 3rd place finish last time out at Britain. He's looking for back-to-back 3rds to go and really move up the order, but will have to stave off Meraki's charge in the Ferrari, who is staring down the barrel of back to back fourth were it not for the fact of his penalty, where Karim is now going to start finding a couple of points to really jump on up. But for the moment, we sit with not long left, and the last lap now starts.
And Alex Gillon is starting that last lap. A driver that waited until the very end to try his inters and full wets, and has luck been on his side. Of course it has, but he's had incidents himself. He's had problems, and right now he is going to be your Grand Prix winner with 1 lap remaining. He's got to make it through the 13 corners here at the Canadian Grand Prix. He's already through 4, and he's only got a few left. Jake, it's looking good for Mr. Gillon.
Karim is 4 seconds off the back of Formula Kai here. This is big. He's slowing into every corner right now, is Alex Gillon. But Formula Kai right now is looking at Karim's gap and thinking, will that go beneath 3 seconds between now and the end of this race? It has been one where you've had to look up at the sky and hope your luck was in. Nothing you can do. 3 more seconds for Ricky 03. But now running down to Lepangle, turn number 10 out on circuit. Have we ever seen in your EA Creator Series a series that has started so dominantly for a driver before, now running himself along the casino straight when he knows that this time he will roll the jackpot with 1 corner to go, the right and the left, the wall of champions, which he will just try and avoid with everything he's got. Alex Gillon is going to get a 3-peat here at Montreal, a dominant win as he comes to the line. Watch that gap, 3 seconds exactly right now for 3rd, 4th and 5th. It will be Tom coming to the line to take 2nd, but who's 3rd? Is it Kai or Karim? Is it Kai or Karim? And it's Karim!
And Karim nicks it at the line by only 0.2 of a second. Karim gets onto the podium. GB 6th place, Meraki 5th, Gillon. What did we just do? 6 seconds and we beat them. You certainly did, Gillon. You certainly did. Grid jokes. The reserve comes in to finish in 7th place. With 12 seconds of penalties, he will drop back behind Tyre Rainbow, who finishes in 8th place. A race weekend once again he will want to forget. Of course, he will jump up a place into 7th. But yeah, goodness gracious me, what a Grand Prix we've just seen, Jake.
It stands to tell that when you have to use all 5 tyres and you don't quite know what's going to go on later on in this race, the drivers who decided to play it as if it was going to be dry all the way are the ones who get bit in the end. Rain coming in very late on in this one to change the complexity of this race. What a start to this season for Alex Gillon. 3 straight to pick things off, and knowing he's got a penchant for missing a race or 2, that is the perfect start and the perfect buffer that he'd be looking to make and keeping himself in play. A familiar story here in season 10, and it's one where Alex Gillon will be the one smiling once again, this time from a very sodden circuit here at Gilles Villeneuve.
And that is the celebration that is deserved for Mr. Gillon. A victory. Once again, he matches his old sparring partner for 3 wins in a row at the start of a Creator Series season. Can he make it the 4th one out next time out? But that will be to be seen as we see who gets Driver of the Day. Hayden Gullis picks up Driver of the Day. And cleanest driver goes to GB. Well, Hayden may have not got his cleanest driver award, but he does get driver of the day. Race winner, of course, Alex Gillon, along with his fastest lap. And here's the rundown. Gillon from 4th goes into the lead of the Grand Prix. Tom, Karim, Formula Kai, Meraki, GB, Theo Mardik, Grid Jokes, Lottie Nova, Naguero into your top 10. And then Hayden, Razin, Kalon, Adam Sanderson, Ricky, Scott Taylor, Scotty Designs, and our 3 DNFs in Fratic, Punju, and Gwatz, who rounds out your 20.